On March 3rd, 2020, just weeks before George Floyd's death under the knee of a white Minneapolis police officer named Derek Chauvin, Manuel Ellis, a 33-year-old unarmed black man, was killed the same way. According to the Pierce County Medical Examiner, his death was a homicide and attributed to the lack of oxygen because he was being restrained. Witnesses allegedly saw Tacoma officers Christopher Burbank and Matthew Collins, both white, attack Ellis without speaking or provocation. And another officer by the name of Timothy Rankin is accused of putting pressure on Ellis's back as he continuously said that he couldn't breathe. According to witnesses, Ellis was not fighting back, and a home security camera captured his last words, which were, quote, "I can't breathe, sir." The officers involved in Mr. Ellis's death have since been put on paid leave and are currently under investigation. According to NPR, quote, the encounter began after officers reported seeing Ellis trying to get into occupied cars at a red light. They cast Ellis as the aggressor, saying he charged at an officer, exited a police car, but two witnesses who recorded parts of the fatal interaction came forward with identical stories, saying police attacked without provocation. An officer in the passenger side of a patrol car slammed his door into Ellis, knocking him down, and then jumped on him and started beating him, they said. Pierce County Sheriff Ed Troyer, who was at the time a detective and the spokesman for the sheriff's office, said then that none of the officers placed a knee on Ellis's neck or head. But one of the witness videos that later surfaced depicts that. In other words, it contradicts it. So that is not true. Reportedly, the Pierce County office just screwed up its initial investigation into Emmanuel Ellis's death because they failed to publicly release for literally 3 months that one of its deputies responded. And that's not supposed to happen. And independent investigations are required by state law. Subsequently, the Washington State Patrol and Attorney General in the state took over, and they are now conducting their own investigation with evidence obtained from the State Patrol. We know that Mr. Ellis was schizophrenic, but according to his landlords, he recently sought care and was doing better in recent months. And I know the burning question that many of you have right now: were any criminal charges filed, and what's changed? Well, let's take that first part of the question there about the criminal charges. Yes, criminal charges were filed. The Attorney General of Washington State, Bob Ferguson, announced late last month charges against two Tacoma police officers who were involved in this murder. One was charged with manslaughter, and the other with murder in the death of Manuel Ellis. To be specific in legal terms, and also about the officers involved, Christopher Burbank and Matthew Collins have been charged with second-degree murder. And Timothy Rankin, reportedly the officer who put his knee on Mr. Ellis, whether it was his neck or anywhere near, he has been charged with first-degree manslaughter. Now, what has changed since this terrible situation occurred? Well, Governor Jay Inslee has formed a new task force to investigate police officers' use of deadly force. Also, Governor Inslee recently signed what NPR describes as, quote, one of the most ambitious packages of police accountability legislation. This legislation would completely ban police's use of chokeholds, neck restraints, and also no-knock warrants. This new law also makes it easier for officers to formally be decertified for egregious actions like this. So it's not like, hey, you committed this egregious action. Okay, well, I'm fired from this police department, so let me go to like North Carolina, or let me go to like Idaho and go work for this police department. No, you're officially decertified. That egregious action that you did, it bars you from ever becoming a police officer again. So you can no longer hurt or put a citizen in that situation ever again. So NPR describing this legislation, this bill that Governor Jay Inslee signed into law, as ambitious is sort of rightfully so. Of course, just months later, after Mr. Ellis died in police custody, George Floyd died the same way. The person who recorded the deadly scene was then 17-year-old Darnella Frazier. She's now 18 years old. She testified in the Derek Chauvin trial about that day, and earlier this month, she won the Pulitzer Prize. Now, this is usually an award for journalists, but the committee officials who gave her this reward highlighted the, quote, crucial role of citizens in journalists' quest for truth and justice, end quote. Anne Marie Lipinski, a journalist herself, referred to this video as, quote, one of the most important civil rights documents in a generation, end quote. In another nationally prominent police shooting, 2 North Carolina police officers who fired shots at Andrew Brown Jr., which killed him, returned to work just about 3 weeks ago, and another is expected to resign at the end of this month. In Glenn County, Georgia, where Ahmaud Arbery was killed by 2 white supposed neighborhood watchers, a black chief has just been named. His name is Jacques Batiste, and he said, quote, I promise you I will bring my best game every day, end quote.